One group text chain with Nazis, that's maybe, suspicious, but now the second guy with a Nazi
But maybe they're the same one,
chain,
Lulu, I don't know.
I mean, could there be a theme there? I don't know. Curious minds want to know. And the fact is that all you have is the president and the administration defending these people. And
yeah,
that, I think, is the problem.
No one's defending, to be honest, no one's defending this gentleman, right? He's
But
kind
he
of
hasn't been
twisting.
pulled
Well, then why is he still nominated?
I'm not quite sure why no one has yanked it.
In this video, this CNN MAGA pundit gets called out for his nonsensical takes over this live debate. Things get tense when Lulu Garcia-Navarro presses David Urban about yet another Republican nominee caught in a Nazi-linked group chat. She's clearly frustrated. Like, how many times do you see this before you call it what it is? Urban tries to brush it off, saying no one's defending the guy, but Lulu doesn't let up. She points out the obvious. If no one's defending him, why is he still nominated? That's when Kasie jumps in too, backing Lulu's point and exposing the weakness in Urban's whole defense. He just sits there stuck, saying he doesn't know why no one pulled the nomination. Like, dude, that's the entire problem. The moment perfectly shows how out of touch this MAGA pundit logic sounds when faced with real accountability. So make sure to watch till the end to see how this CNN MAGA pundit gets called out for his nonsensical takes over this live debate.
Paul Ingracia's nomination has been on shaky ground, especially after Politico published racist texts he is said to have sent to a group of Republicans. My panel is back on the left side of your screen. We are also joined by the Arena text chain, where we're sharing additional analysis from some of our top reporters and contributors. It's especially for those of you who are watching on mute, and you can't even hear what I'm saying right now. Anyway, David Urban, hearing Senator Langford talk about Paul Ingracia was actually pretty interesting, and it's just to me like, this isn't going nowhere fast.
Yeah, Jim Langford is no squish, right, in terms of supporting this president. And the amazing thing to me is this gentleman has been able to twist in the wind for so long. This story's had 48 hours, now 72 hours, whatever it's been. I can't imagine that if you're the White House, you should have just pulled the plug. Someone should have called this gentleman up and said, here's the deal. You're either going to withdraw, or we're going to withdraw you within the next 24 minutes. And he should have been gone. He's definitely not going to get a hearing. You saw what the majority leader said. I think he's waiting for the White House to do it. I'm not quite sure why it's lasted this long. But listen, the Republicans have done, they've really tried hard to make inroads with people of color, black, brown people, all these things. And you've got this, like, the Republican junior, whatever, in New York State, and then this guy. You don't want that out there. You want to bury that.
I've got a question, though. One group text chain with Nazis, that's maybe, suspicious, but now the second guy with a Nazi
But maybe they're the same one,
chain,
Lulu, I don't know.
I mean, could there be a theme there? I don't know. Curious minds want to know. And the fact is that all you have is the president and the administration defending these people. And that, I think, is the problem.
No one's defending, to be honest, no one's defending this gentleman, right? He's kind of twisting.
Well, then why is he still nominated?
I'm not quite sure why no one has yanked it, but listen, it didn't come up in his vetting because, this is obviously a private text chain that was somebody else threw it over the train.
Kasie brings up Paul Ingracia's nomination, and right away you can hear how uneasy the whole thing sounds. Politico exposed those racist texts he sent, and instead of owning up to it, David Urban tries to treat it like it's just some awkward situation that'll pass. He keeps saying the White House should have pulled him already, but he still talks about it like it's a PR issue, not a moral one. Then Lulu Garcia-Navarro jumps in and she doesn't waste time. She points out how this isn't just one bad apple. It's another guy caught in Nazi-linked chats, and she's clearly tired of the excuses. Urban tries to make a joke about it maybe being the same Nazi, but Lulu immediately presses back, asking the real question. If no one's defending him, why is he still up for nomination? Kasie backs her up, and Urban just admits he doesn't know. That's when it really shows. Nobody wants to take responsibility, and everyone's too busy trying not to look bad. Saying it didn't come up in vetting just makes it worse. That's not some minor detail they missed. That's exactly why people are losing trust.
I hear you, David, and you're being very gracious by calling him a gentleman. The best I can muster is carbon-based life form. He was unfit for any position in government long before we found out about these private texts. And as Congress being the Article I branch, the supreme branch of our Constitution, the fact that he had publicly said Donald Trump is the Constitution and that's all that matters should have been enough for the Congress to say no to him.
Our originalist over here would definitely say this.
But he has also said horrendous things in the past publicly. All the private texts do is, turns out, that he has the authenticity to be the same garbage person he is in private that he already was in public.
Well, and let's walk through some of what Politico learned, and then Ashley, I'll send it your way. But just if you haven't caught up or read Politico, the chain before says Paul belongs in the Hitler Youth with Übergruppenführer, did I pronounce that right? Steve Bannon. And then Paul Ingrassia, who is the nominee in question, writes back, I do have a Nazi streak in me from time to time. I will admit it. There's the exchange. Then he also has things to say along the lines of MLK Jr. was the 1960s George Floyd, and his holiday should be ended and tossed into the seventh circle of hell where it belongs. Now, someone in the group chat has the wherewithal to write back, Jesus Christ, which seems, Ashley, I don't know what your response is, but...
About the same.
Yeah. I go to Lulu's point, like, why are so many people who have these secret text chains?
Two.
Well, there were a lot more in a group chat.
Yeah.
There were a lot more in it.
But there were people calling him out in the group chat.
But why are they...
My grandfather fought in World War II, okay?
Yeah,
he got shot in the shoulder, right? Now, he was in the Pacific Theater, but the point of this was to stop the Nazis, right? And, as someone who grew up with that, I guess I never really thought that covering politics, we would end up with, Nazi in the
Nazi
discourse.
streaks.
I was just in Germany when those text messages came out from the Young Republicans, and I can tell you that people were shocked there. Like, the word Nazi here gets bandied about.
Now it does.
It's not there, it's living history. And the fact that there are people here who are being nominated or are in positions of power using it and boasting about it is really shocking.
It just feels so commonplace now, and I don't like it. I don't want it to be. If I could live my life and be an individual and just be an American, I would. But I don't always have that privilege, and I said it before and I'll say it again. What you say in private, you think in public, and you live in public, and you interact with people in public from all different walks of life.
Jonah Goldberg jumps in here and completely changes the tone. You can tell he's fed up. He calls the nominee a carbon-based life form, which honestly is probably the most polite way to say someone shouldn't be anywhere near government work. He reminds everyone that this guy was already unfit long before the racist text came out, just based on his public comments about Trump being the Constitution. That's not a gaffe. That's the mindset of someone who has no business near public office. Kasie throws in a quick jab, joking about Jonah's originalist side, but Jonah keeps going and really lays out the hypocrisy. The private text just confirmed what was already obvious in public. This guy wasn't hiding who he was. Then Kasie reads the actual messages from Politico, and it's even worse. Jokes about being in the Hitler Youth, mocking MLK Jr., wishing his holiday was tossed into the seventh circle of hell. It's disgusting, and the fact that someone in that chat had to reply with Jesus Christ kinda says it all. Ashley Allison's reaction is exactly what you'd expect from someone who's just done with the excuses. She ties it back to Lulu's earlier point. Why are there so many of these cases where people in power think it's fine to say this stuff in private? She's basically saying what you say privately reflects who you are publicly. And she's right, it's not about cancel culture. It's about basic decency.
So when we are saying we need things potentially like DEI to overcome some of these racist tendencies or terrible thoughts of people who may be in power who think it publicly but say it privately, and we're called race baiters or what, this is the reality of our country. I don't want to actually hide it. I want to know it exists. I think we have to know we have a problem in this country in order to solve it as this country.
So
I agree with all that. I've been dealing with this on the right for about a decade now. I was at National Review for 20 years. There's always been a fever swamp part of the right. One of the points in National Review is to keep it at bay. William F. Buckley chased out the anti-Semites in all sorts of ways. In the last 10 years, starting with what was once called the alt-right, which Steve Bannon wanted to make Breitbart, my old friend Andrew Breitbart's website, into the platform for the alt-right, there became this whole movement that said, you can trigger and own the libs by using this language. They invited people who meant it sincerely. They also invited people to just use it glibly as a way to sort of trigger people and to be transgressive and all of that. And the problem is that if you started paying attention to politics in your teenage years or your early college years 10 years ago, you are now the entry level, you are at the beginning of the food chain of the Republican Party. And there's been a tolerance for a lot of these people that, because they think they need to be cool and edgy, and the podcast bros love them. You know, this Ingrassia guy is a big defender of Andrew Tate, who's a horrible, anti-Semite and misogynist beyond belief.
Yes.
And the whole idea of like caring about norms and stuff is seen as being weak and selling out to the libs and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of the grown-ups need to. I take heart. The young Republicans canned all of these schmucks in that group chat that J.D. Vance thought fit to sort of defend. And it's dawning on a lot of people on the right that, we let in these monsters and to be fair, some of them are really monsters and some of them are just morons. And it's difficult from a distance to tell the difference because the morons are using the language of the monsters.
And Kasie, to your point, your grandfather fought in World War II. There's context. If you've been to Auschwitz or Dachau or been anywhere, overseas, you get this. None of these kids were born before 9/11. They don't even know what 9/11 was, let alone World War II, right? So it lacks a lot of context. And the flippancy, which we call fascists, Nazis, we do it so frequently in politics today that
but
it becomes.
But this man is going before the Senate to be the special counsel. We can't call him a kid.
I think the point you're trying to make is.
But my point is, it's like there's no place in the body politic for any of this stuff, right? It needs to be condemned, but it needs to be condemned widely, right? Yeah. No fascism, no Nazism. If you disagree with somebody, you disagree with them. But the ad hominem attacks, the crazy Nazi, the crazy fascist, needs to stop. It just needs to stop, period.
Ashley wraps things up by grounding the whole conversation in reality. She's not talking about political optics. She's talking about the day-to-day harm that comes from ignoring this stuff. She points out that DEI programs aren't about virtue signaling. They're about countering the mindset that leads to people in power thinking racism is something they can just joke about in private. And she's right. Pretending it doesn't exist only makes it worse. Jonah actually brings in an interesting moment of honesty here. He admits that parts of the right have been playing with fire for years, letting that own the libs culture blend into open bigotry. It's rare to hear that said so plainly, and it kind of exposes how this mess didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of tolerating extremists for clicks and influence. David Urban tries to pull things back to a both sides message, saying we overuse the word fascist, but Ashley cuts him off with a simple point. The guy's not some clueless kid. He's up for a Senate-confirmed position. That's the gap right there. She's talking about accountability, he's talking about tone, and that's where the bias creeps in. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and the other says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.